And away we go again. Another American Jew coming at you. My name
Chewing it up over here in the Lower East Side. He's Jordan Ferber. I cut him off before he could get his name out.
He's Jonathan Randall. He's always cutting me off.
I love cutting people off. I'm trying not to do that so much in my life. People don't like to be interrupted. I feel like I do that a lot, and I'm really like working on it. So I apologize, Jordan.
You're
interrupting me while I'm apologizing to you about interrupting you.
You're like a conversational mohel. That's what it is.
Is it? I just got to cut a little bit off.
Cut off the tip.
Hey, why not? Sometimes you need to cut off the tip.
Well, how's your week been going so far?
It's been going okay. How about yours?
I don't
want to talk too much about the Kanye. Every week that's more ridiculousness from Kanye. I think this week he said that Jews should forgive Hitler. We'll forgive Hitler when you forgive Pete Davidson, okay?
It's really crazy how there's just I don't want to talk about it either, but it keeps coming up
I feel like that's all we should talk about.
Well, there is some good news, I guess. I mean, the fact that Doug Emhoff, I fuck up his name. Yeah, Doug Emhoff, the second gentleman.
Okay.
Kamala Harris's husband is Jewish.
Kamala Harris's husband,
right?
Who's a Jew.
So he just organized a roundtable on anti-Semitism at the White House, where they bring together a lot of people from all these other different Jewish organizations to try to figure out how we can fight anti-Semitism.
How are we going to do it?
Well,
what did they figure out?
Listen, I don't know. Every time they create a task force or a roundtable, it's like they have these discussions, but I don't know what they end up doing. He said they're going to check back on progress in a few weeks or whatever.
So what does that even mean? They're like, we're going to come up with solutions to combat anti-Semitism. What they are, we don't even know. I
don't know. I mean, they're talking about how they're going to. It's all about raising awareness and creating more education so people understand that the Holocaust happened and what the problems were. You know, really getting into the historical facts of it, of anti-Semitism.
Right. People do need to know about the Holocaust and what happened. And, of course, any hatred and bigotry isn't right.
Yeah. I mean, so what Doug has said, I like referring to him as the second gentleman. It's really,
okay.
He's only, I think, the third.
I like referring to him as Doug.
Well, so he's said, people are not saying the quiet parts, not just saying the quiet parts out loud, they're screaming them. And so we have to really kind of curb that, and get people to stop believing some of that shit that they're saying.
It's true. A lot of people want to believe some of these ridiculous, like, anti-Semitic stereotypes and these ridiculous tropes that have just been, like, around forever and, like, have always been like, these aren't real, these aren't true. But for some reason, these, like, ridiculous conspiracy theories, they just won't go away.
I mean, the other problem is, and I think this is one of the issues that they brought up at this roundtable, is that Jews being persecuted is not always taken seriously as a real thing because a lot of Jews are, classified as white and privileged, so they don't get the same type of sympathy from the general public that black people or other marginalized races or groups might face.
Well, and I can understand that, I mean, Kanye might be saying dumb things, but, like, the cops are killing black people, like, there is kind of a difference. A lot of, Jewish people are affluent, do well. There is a lot of poverty in the Jewish community, especially, like, in the Chabad and the ultra-Orthodox communities as well. But I feel, for the most part, a lot of Jews are viewed as being privileged people.
I mean, there's no question that there are privileged Jews out there, but I think to a larger extent, the thing about anti-Semitism, it doesn't care what your status is. The anti-Semitism, people.
Right, it's just all Jews. They hate all Jews, and it's bad. But there are degrees of anti-Semitism. What we talked about, a lot of people want to say things are anti-Semitic that aren't anti-Semitic, and of course, the Jews have a huge problem already, which is Israel, and more people are coming, being awoken to the reality of the situation and what's been going on there pretty much since 1948, if not before, and the oppression that the Palestinian people have faced. And that is starting to, really reflect poorly on Jewish people and really have more and more of a backlash. So it's weird because it's like we are trying to fight some of this ridiculous Kanye anti-Semitism, but then there is a lot of frustration. Unfortunately, I'm going to say the word hatred towards the Jewish community because of how the Palestinian people have been treated.
I mean, this is a thing that we talk about on this show all the time. It's like banging our head against a wall. The fact is that I don't understand why people can't seem to separate the practices of Israel and the practices of just Jews in general. Like the fact that you can be against the policies of their government doesn't make you anti-Semitic. And I think that that's a big distinction that it's really hard for a lot of people to get over the hump of. It's really hard for people to accept that you can be anti-Israel and pro-people and not be anti-Semitic.
Right, and I think one of the reasons people have such a hard time is because of Israel, and Israel saying, no, if you say anything bad against us, you are anti-Semitic, and kind of like perpetuating those ideals like Israel's doing themselves.
Yeah.
And it's not doing them any favors, as social media expands even more and more, and people are putting out content, more and more people are becoming aware of what is happening in Palestine, what has happened, and it's really just reaching more and more of a boiling point, and it's not going to lead to anything good. And what's making it even worse is now Netanyahu's back with this extremist right-wing government that is doesn't care for the Palestinian people, doesn't apparently even care for democracy, but is just going to make things even worse in the eyes of so many people who already have a bad perspective on Israel and the Jewish people because of the treatment of the Palestinian people. So the World Cup is happening right now, and I think this is a great example of it because this is the first time the World Cup is happening in an Arab country.
Right.
So there has been, Palestine isn't a team in the World Cup, but many people are saying Palestine are the winners of the World Cup because the solidarity that all these other teams have shown is just incredible, especially Arab teams, but not only Arab teams, because there are videos of people from Brazil chanting Brazilian wins.
There was a guy from Turkey, I think, that ran on the field with a Palestinian flag.
Yes, there were. There were British people being interviewed, and they said, oh, wait, what's really important is free Palestine. And there's not a game where people aren't, like Morocco, they won against Spain, they won against Canada. What they did when they won, they took out the Palestinian flag. There are Israeli reporters that have been there now that are being snubbed by, different guests that are there to see the World Cup, different players or whatever. They say, no, we don't want to talk to you. We stand in solidarity with Palestine and the Palestinian people. And this movement is growing.
It's been kind of interesting watching some of those videos, seeing the Israeli journalists being literally, people just walk away, when they find out that they're from the Israeli journalism.
Yeah, some of them are saying they're from Portugal or from other countries because they want to get an interview, and they're getting shown no respect because they're from Israel and because of Israel's policy towards the Palestinian people. Which, no matter how you look at it, and yes, okay, there's been peace deals, and yes, there were infadadas, and, they had things that, aggressive moves by Palestinian people, Arab people, whatever, but it still doesn't excuse all of the behaviors of Israel, especially during the Nakba, and up to present day, where there are kids that are being shot daily. A kid throws a rock, he gets shot with a bullet, and people are stabbed, whatever. We're talking about this all the time, and Israel wants to say, oh, he was going to throw a Molotov cocktail. But of course, there's video, there's no Molotov cocktails. They're like, oh, he was going to stab someone with a knife. But there are videos, there are no knives. And people are seeing this and becoming more and more aware. And, I know you mentioned you didn't see it, but I did watch the movie Farha, which is on Netflix, which takes place during the Nakba in 1948, which is what the Palestinian and many Arab people consider the catastrophe, when over 750,000 Palestinians were expelled from their land and over 15,000 were killed. And
this movie is, where's this movie at?
This movie is available on Netflix
now. Okay.
It's a really good movie. It was in, I guess, the Toronto Film Festival. It's Jordon's submission for the Academy Awards.
Oh, I didn't even know I submitted anything.
And, of course, Israel's very unhappy with the movie. I posted something about the movie, and you should see the comments. Oh, no, it's none of this is true. It's lies. And it's like, how would you feel if someone said that about Schindler's List? You know what I'm saying? It's based on real events. I'm sure not everything is real, just like on Schindler's List.
It's a fictionalized account of it.
Yeah, it's a fictionalized account.
Okay, so it's based on a true story.
Based on a true story.
You got to take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt, but I always feel like the viewpoint and the context for it is where a lot of this stuff comes from. So they can change some of the small details and still make their point to get their point across.
Exactly, and I think that's what the point is.
Right.
Because the truth is, Israeli historians have admitted that events like what is shown in the movie happened. There are plenty of them that I was reading about some other ones even before we came here, some horrible massacres that happened to the Palestinian people, during 1948 when the IDF was being created, and how they killed groups of people that were waving white flags, and there were rapes and all this horrible stuff, like, has been proven and well documented, and been brought up, in the Knesset. It was brought up to David Ben-Gurion. Like, these things happen. So to dismiss everything, it's not true because it's just based on a true story, it's not fair, and it doesn't do justice to anybody. And, I think everyone needs to see this movie, especially Jewish people, because these things happen, and as the rest of the world awakens to the reality of the suffering that the Palestinian people have gone through, the Jewish people need to realize what has happened, because we're not being told the true narrative. I wasn't told it for years growing up. I've met so many other people that are like, we were told like a totally different story. We weren't told the reality of what happened in 1948 when we took over the land, and what's actually been happening ever since.
I mean, it's like a bad game of telephone where the message just keeps getting diluted and changed over time. That you have,
but not even because
no. But I'm just saying, like, you have
it's
these.
Not. I don't like that analogy though. Just because in telephone you tell someone it changes, but like this story is never being told for the truth.
Right.
There is no start. In telephone you start with something concrete and then it changes to something else. This was never something concrete. It's just been passed on as kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
And I understand we wanting to have a Jewish nation, and I get that.
Well,
but we got to ask ourselves, how do we want this Jewish nation?
I'll tell you this. It reminds me so much of a couple of years ago when we interviewed the lesbian couple that's a Palestinian and a Jew.
Iman and Jess.
Iman and Jess. And they talked about how whenever they argue about stuff that they have to qualify or quantify the information. Like, where did you get that information from? Where did that stat come from? And is it something that was like just ingrained in your upbringing, or is it a thing that you researched on your own and came to figured this out?
Right.
Because they both came from families that had those different narratives, that had opposing viewpoints, that told stories from their points of view, right? And didn't take the actual historical context, into account.
No, definitely. So,
I think also, it's interesting to me that, the World Cup is supposed to bring people together,
but it seems like it has brought some people together, just not Israel. But it is uniting the Arab communities and Arab countries.
Like,
they are coming together in support of Palestine.
Are you a soccer fan?
I don't care about sports.
'Cause I feel like Americans, we don't even really care about soccer. Like, the World Cup is just an excuse to get drunk during the day, really.
I don't need any excuses.
I know, I'm just saying, most Americans...
Where's my whiskey, goddammit? I'm sorry, where's my Manischewitz?
I just think, a lot of Americans only watch the World Cup because they can drink at 10 a.m.
Okay, sure.
But it is interesting.
But now a lot of them are watching it for solidarity with Palestine.
I don't know. I think it's interesting that soccer is like the one game that the whole world plays. There's that story of the soldiers during World War I that were in different trenches from different different armies, and they started playing soccer together during a ceasefire thing, and just to blow off some steam before going back to killing each other.
Is that what the penalty shot was? Death?
Yeah, something like that. But I feel like that's one of the reasons why I think maybe the World Cup has brought out some of this stuff, because it is there is just that same experience, the experience of being a soccer fan. It's weird as Americans how little we care about soccer.
I mean, I don't care about any sports, not just soccer.
Yeah.
Okay, I treat all sports equally with me not giving a shit. But know what I guess I do care about is as part of this week's Torah portion.
Okay, yeah.
Which I just find so bizarre. There are two parts that I find bizarre.
Well, I'll tell you this. When we used to do the Torah portion every week, they're all bizarre. There's so many things in there, in the Torah that, like, it's always so crazy to me that people take this shit so literally that they have to, like, I always feel like there are all these, like, little messages and things that you can take from the Torah portions without having to take them literally.
Right. Well, so this week it's the 8th Torah portion in the cycle. We're 8 weeks in, and it's about Jacob.
Right, Jacob and Esau.
Right. So, Jacob's worried. He's going to reunite with his brother. He's worried about what's going to happen. So, whatever. A bunch of stuff happens. That part doesn't really interest me so much. So, what does interest me is Jacob, after his reunion, he goes and he moves to this new place.
Right.
And then his daughter, Dinah, goes to, check it out. And the prince of the place rapes her.
Right.
So he rapes her, and then he's like, "Oh, I wanna marry her." Like, he just wants her so bad, like he has to have her, So Jacob's like, "Well, I'll tell you what. if everyone in your town gets circumcised, then we'll let you marry Dina, and we'll let our women mix with you or whatever. And they were like, okay. Which, by the way, Dina must have had such incredible pussy.
Yeah, I mean,
if they already had sex with her, and they were still willing to chop off a piece of their dicks to do it again. That's some good snatch right there.
There's a lot. Almost all of the women in the Torah, they seem to have like these qualities that, like, you know, are these men just like fall all over themselves.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of Jacob's kids didn't like this arrangement. So after the whole town, after they circumcised themselves, and they were healing,
right,
they came and they killed them all.
Killed them all.
What? Wow. What? I didn't read that in like the Art of War or anything, you know? Get your enemy to circumcise himself, and then when he's regretting it, take him out.
I mean, that is pretty cold.
That is pretty crazy, right?
That's very cold.
That is a move. Like, I'm sorry. I like, you know, even Israel isn't doing that to the Palestinians these days.
Right.
And it's just horrible. Wow, what a way to die, you know? Like that, like you had to chop off a piece of your dick, live with that pain for like a day or two, and then you get killed.
Amazing. I mean,
horrible last couple days on Earth, right? Like if you had one day on Earth, you wouldn't want it to be like recuperating from fucking dick surgery.
You got to wonder. You know, I don't remember hearing that story that so explicitly when I was a kid, when I was growing up.
I don't remember them teaching me that story at the Hebrew Academy either. I feel like they left it out. And then Jacob wrestled an angel that had the spirit of Esau,
Yeah.
and they're like, and the end of the Torah portion. And you're like, wait, what about the part where the dicks get? No. So yes, another part of this Torah portion that I find interesting.
I mean, by the way, this goes back historically. Like, this is the same refrain. Like, this is kind of like Israel, you know, whitewashing their own history, not explaining the fact that we cut off people's dicks and then killed them. Like, that's, you know, that didn't happen.
And it's weird because in this week's Torah portion, Jacob gets his name changed to Israel.
Right.
Actually,
yes,
he goes from being Jacob to Israel, which that started a whole thing.
I mean, people are definitely going to know you're Jewish,
right? So then another part of this portion that also was left out when I was a kid was and I've been reading like there's different interpretations of this.
Okay.
But, you know, one interpretation is that another one of Jacob's kids, Reuben, he slept with Jacob's concubine.
Okay.
Reuben was Jacob's eldest, and because he slept with Jacob's concubine, he lost his like eldest rights. He lost his eldest privileges.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, whoa, is this like the first instance in the Bible of like what's very popular on Pornhub right now?
Oh,
where it's like the stepmom porn situation, and like Reuben's like, kind of concubine, kind of a stepmom situation.
Yeah.
And Reuben's like, I gotta get with the stepmom, and Jacob was pissed. But then there are also other interpretations that he didn't have sex with them, but he was just unhappy because I guess Jacob moved this concubine's bed closer to his tent, and he was upset because he thought his mother's that was disrespectful to his mother, so he went and moved the bed away. So that's why Jacob did it. But I don't know. It makes more sense that you would lose your privilege as the firstborn because you fucked your dad's favorite sex doll, I don't know what, concubine or whatever. Then you moved his bed. Like,
right.
you know, how petty is Jacob? Like, in one interpretation, Jacob is like super petty. How dare you move the bed? I had to go to a different tent to get some tonight.
I mean,
and the other one, I could get. Like, I wouldn't want my kid sleeping with my girlfriend.
Listen, it's definitely a sibling thing, though. You know, you leave your stuff out long enough, you're going to find your sibling using it.
Yeah, but this was his son.
Oh, well. Okay.
Reuben was Jacob's firstborn son.
Oh, okay.
Are you not listening to anything I said? He lost his firstborn privilege. But okay, yes, that was a good joke.
Thank you.
If only the context was right, it would have been perfect.
Damn it.
So, but I thought that those are just some weird, you're right, there are lots of parts that are weird of the Bible, but these particularly stuck out to me. I don't know, you know?
Yeah.
I guess one, because, you know, it is one of my very popular Pornhub categories. And I'm just joking. But it is like a popular Pornhub category. People are obsessed with this kind of like step sex thing or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah.
And this and the Bible, this is what happened. 8 books in, we're into it, you know? 8 books in, we're like, we gotta spice this up. How are we gonna do it? Why don't we have his son have sex with the guy's girlfriend?
I mean, there's lots of stories in the Bible about how it's bad to have sex with other people in your family, with your siblings, with your cousins, but they don't tell you not to have sex with your dad's concubine.
Right, and that comes later. That
Right.
doesn't come till we get like the 10 Commandments.
Right.
We're still in book 1.
Right. We're still
like just getting into it.
Right.
Just Genesis.
They haven't even made the rules yet of not, they're barely even at this point. I don't even think they told you to stop fucking
Jews
the
have
animals.
barely been oppressed. We've barely been slaved. We're just getting started. You know, we're like 3 generations in.
Yeah.
In Vaishlach. So I want to start a new segment on the show.
Yes.
That is called Jew Need to Know. This week's Jew Need to Know is one of the things that makes Netanyahu's return so dangerous for both Palestinian human rights and for Israel's democracy is that him and his right-wing extremist allies are trying to change Israel's judicial system with an override clause, which would allow them to enact laws which were already deemed undemocratic by the Israeli Supreme Court.
Right.
So not only would this include expanding illegal settlements in the West Bank, but it would also help Netanyahu evade his corruption charges. And I just thought that was something Jew need to know.
We need to have like that star, like it's got to be the Jewish Star of David.
Oh my gosh, could you please make that graphic? You're going to regret saying that right now. When I'm like, where's the graphic,
Yeah.
Jordan? And you're like, I can't make it. I'm like, figure it out. It was your idea. But we need that.
Yeah.
We do need that.
Jew need to
What
know.
a good idea with the Star of David, the Jew need to know.
Yeah, with the
You
rainbow.
think we can make it happen?
I mean, we'll work on it.
All right. I'm more excited about the new segment.
I'm a Photoshop whiz.
All right. We're doing it. But yeah, I don't know. What else? You got anything else you want to talk about today?
What else did we want to talk about?
If you haven't seen Farha, check it out, okay? Even if you think it's total fiction, even if you think it's total crap, even if you're super religious, nationalist, extremist Jew, just open your mind for a different perspective and just watch this, because things like this happened and we got to start taking some ownership of the bad that we did if we want to create good in the future.
I think also, one of the things that we talk about on the show all the time is, all the anti-Semitism stuff, but I think it's interesting, you're from Florida, you're from Miami, I'm from New York. These are the hot areas where there are a lot of Jews. So we don't always necessarily feel the kind of anti-Semitism that happens, in the middle of the country. Reading stories about people that grow up Jewish, like in Alabama, who are afraid to be Jewish,
and not have sex with their sister.
Right. But I mean, people that, I was reading an article about this guy that grew up in Alabama that, his family always told him, don't tell anybody that you're Jewish. His neighbors across the thing, are riding around on 4-wheelers with the Confederate flag on it. It's like, these are, you don't see the Confederate flag in New York, with frequency,
Right. You don't. But I don't, did the Confederates have a hard time with Jews?
Well, I mean, yeah. Don't you think? They were like...
I mean, I know they really didn't like black people, but I guess you don't hear a lot about, that anti-Semitism from the Confederates.
I mean, white supremacists hated the Jews.
White supremacists they do hate Jews.
Yeah. I mean, if you're wearing a Ku Klux Klan hood, you're doing your own taxes.
Okay.
Probably.
It's a possibility,
yeah.
for sure. I think so. Definitely. I like that. That was a Jewish accountant joke, everybody, if you didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I was a fan, personally, even though then, it didn't really go anywhere after that.
So what else?
Be a Jew.
Yeah.
Be a Jew. Don't be a hater. Don't be a bigot.
I think it's always great.
Be proud to be a Jew. I feel like that does a disservice to Jews when people tell the kids, don't tell people you're Jewish. No. How are we supposed to normalize there being Jews in Alabama, or how are we supposed to,
right.
when we're hiding? We have to be proud. And not only do we have to be okay with expressing that we're Jews, but we have to be people. We have to represent the Jewish people in a good way. That's such a big problem right now with Israel, is that it's not representing the Jewish people in a good way. And listen, these Arab countries, they're growing. This solidarity with the Palestinian people is spreading. And unless we make a huge course correction right now, we are going to be in more trouble, because Israel is going more to the right and more extreme, and it's just going to be worse for the people of Palestine and for Jews across the world, as that reflects poorly on us.
For sure. I mean, I think it's why it's such a difficult thing to try to combat anti-Semitism at home while also having to, look in the Middle East and put our fingers in that pie also. It's like a very difficult
Yeah, we got to tell people, hey, don't be anti-Semitic jerks. And we got to tell Israel, hey, don't be murderous, breaking people's fundamental human rights jerks.
Yeah, we got our hands full.
We definitely do, but hey, it's okay. Hopefully you'll have your hands full with all the awesome content we're creating. And that's why you're going to subscribe to our YouTube page, leave us a comment on iTunes, check us out at American Jew Pod on Instagram, on TikTok, and of course you could always follow me at Jonathan Randall across all social media, and check out my other podcast, How You Like Me Now.
Yeah, and you can follow me on Instagram at BeatNickNudnick. You can also follow my other podcast, Where's the Grief, if you want to hear about some sadness, I guess. And we hope you guys have a happy Hanukkah. We'll be back I guess, we're smack dab in the middle of Hanukkah, right?
All right.
Yeah,
we're not going to be recording next week, but we will be back with all the Hanukkah joy and dreidel action and latkes your stomach could handle.
I'm saving up my oil now. All right.